Hello. Today I'm going to talk about some really cheap ways you can put together a recording studio for music in your bedroom. The focus here is on super cheap and relatively easy to put together. This is the studio I put together. Yours may vary, but hopefully this will give you some ideas. Let's start by looking at my main performing keyboard. This is an Alessi's Recital Pro. It is an 88 key piano. It is very cheap. I got it for around $300. The main things I was looking for was a keyboard that had built-in speakers, that had a relatively nice action, that was still a full 88 keys so I could perform as a pianist. But I wasn't really concerned about sounds. As you'll see, most of my sounds are coming into the computer or coming in from the computer. And so I just wanted a keyboard that felt good. This one worked very well for those purposes. So when I want to actually play piano as a piano player, this is the keyboard that I turn to. I do have a computer monitor above the keyboard for when I want to read music or follow lyrics or do controls from my audio software while performing. This keyboard is hooked into my main computer through a simple USB connection. Obviously, you may not play piano, you may be a guitarist or other instrumentalist. If so, just substitute in your instrument here. The keyboard I just showed was my main performing instrument. However, most of the time when I'm interacting directly with the computer, doing day-to-day note entry, quick edits, etc., I don't want to go over to a separate keyboard to do that. That's why I have my other keyboard, which is a very simple M-Audio Keyrig 49. This keyboard is dirt cheap. I think I actually got it as a promo for my credit card, but you can buy keyboards like this for between $50 and $100 very easily. Here, there's no output directly in it. It's all coming out of the computer. There are no sounds built in. It's a simple way to get notes in and control very simple things such as pitch bend and volume. I've got it directly below my computer so that I can immediately go to it. It's plugged in via USB. It doesn't power on separately. It's on all the time. So it's immediately available if I need to turn to it to do any kind of editing or want to just pluck out a melody that comes to my head. It's right there as I'm working. As for my computer itself, it is an HP Pavilion all-in-one 27-inch screen. I have a confession to make. I'm not actually that much of a computer spec guy, so I don't really care too much about the computer itself, except that it be able to do what I need it to do. The main considerations there are RAM. It's got 12 gigs of RAM and a big enough screen to be able to see what I need to see. Other than that, I'm not really all that concerned. This is my main computer for doing work, for doing music, for doing everything, and it works just fine for what I need to do. I'm not a gamer. I don't use a graphics card, so this is perfectly sufficient for me. Let's talk about the audio interface. The audio interface is going to be the main way you get audio information in and out of your computer. Your computer by default is not going to be able to do this in a reasonable way, so you need an audio interface. The one I have is the Focusrite Solo. It's pretty much the cheapest one. It's around $100. It allows you to plug a microphone in and a guitar input or other audio input if you have such. It also allows a headphone out and an auxiliary out. I have both the headphone out and the auxiliary outs going out so that I can use my headphones and speakers as I need. Once again, this is a USB device. It's just always plugged in. It doesn't have to be powered on. It doesn't have to be turned on. It's always there, and it's super fast and easy. My headphones are an Audio-Technica headphone that cost about $50. $50 seems a good target range for headphones for me. They're definitely on the cheap side as far as audio production go, but they're perfectly good for me. The microphone that I use is a Shure SM58. This is a very standard workhorse microphone. I think I've had the one I have for at least 10 years. It's never failed me. It's been great. It costs about $100. If you get cheaper than $100, the mics are not going to be very good in quality. For my purposes, $100 for a microphone is great. You're probably going to want to get some upgraded studio monitors to replace your computer speakers. You can get powered studio monitors that don't require any other amplification and work essentially just as regular speakers. I have a PreSonus Aris pair. You're going to want to pay probably a little bit more for these, and the main reason for that is that you need slightly bigger speakers if you want to really hear the bass at all. Your computer speakers are not going to have bass. You want monitors that can really give you the full spectrum of sound so you can really understand what you're hearing and make it sound nice and flat. You're going to pay probably $150 to $200 for a decent pair of small monitors for a bedroom. My computer itself actually comes with a built-in speaker, and I decided to rig mine such that I can still use that speaker as well for built-in sound, so that the music that I'm making comes out the monitors, music coming from the computer comes from the speakers. For me, that gives a good separation if I'm doing a cover song and I want to listen to the original audio and then go back and forth between my own. I like having those come out of separate sources. It also lets me put headphones on and still hear the other. So it just gives me a nice separation. I did that by plugging the monitors into my audio interface and letting the internal sound come out through the computer. And that is pretty much all the hardware that I have. It works perfectly well for my needs. Sure, I would love to get some more gear someday, but for what I do, this is great. My sound making, my different ways of making music all come from within the computer itself. So I'm not using a lot of external devices that make lots of different sounds. You can certainly go that way, especially if you want more creativity, but it also is going to increase your cost quite a bit. Let's skip over to the software components now to see how those can be built, again, for hopefully relatively cheaply. The first and most important thing is this. When you start making music, with everything plugged in, you're going to notice a tremendous lag. The lag is going to be unbearably long, and that's because you need to get a reasonable driver. There is a cheap, as in free, available driver, ASIO for all, that lets you do this essentially perfectly without any noticeable lag. You might have a tiny bit depending on your system. ASIO for all is completely free, and it should be the first thing you install before you start doing any other music making. Next, let's talk about audio editing software. What I'm talking about here is software that lets you take a sound file and do things with it, cut it, paste it, merge two together, do minor effects, other things like that. There are free options such as Audacity. Audacity is a great free program. I always install it as soon as I get any new computer. Audacity lets you do most of these actions. I happen to use Adobe Audition, which is a much fuller featured version, and that's simply because of my affiliation with Indiana University and the fact that I get that for free. So that helps out a lot. You don't necessarily need to use that to do most audio editing functions. You can use Audacity, but that works for me. Next, let's talk about your digital audio workstation, or DAW, D-A-W. The digital audio workstation is going to be an extraordinarily important part of your music setup. It's sort of the home base for all your music making. It usually allows you to input audio, MIDI signals, do all kinds of other things, editing, mixing, everything all within the computer. It tends to simulate a full mixing board and device chain so that you can do all that completely within your computer, and it usually does it much more economically than actually buying all those things. The choice of which one to use is very much a matter of personal preference. I like Reason. It's not one of the more popular ones. There are other ones. A simple Google search can show you what they are. They all kind of serve the same basic purpose. There are virtual instruments, virtual effects. You string things together, a virtual mixing board. You can output audio, all those kind of things to make your music. This is where, in this kind of setup, you may end up spending a little bit more money. Digital audio workstation software is not cheap. You may pay anywhere from $200, $300, $400 to get this in a full version. But most of them have light versions that are $50 to $100, and virtually all of them also offer free options that are trials or demos that you can play around with before you make a purchase. I suggest you play around with them, see which one you like the best, and see which one fits your needs the best. Lastly, plugins. Plugins are enhancements to your DAW that add functionality, usually by adding new instruments, new samples, other things like that. There are various technologies. One of the most important ones is Virtual Studio Technology, or VST. This is just a protocol that lets you plug in things from all over the place into your software so that you can get things from other companies. They'll still match with your DAW because of this technology. The good news is that there are a ton of free VSTs. If you look around, you can see them. Their quality varies quite a bit. The free ones are usually a teaser to get you to buy a bigger package. However, you can find some pretty decent ones, and for about $100, I was able to get a series of VSTs that I really liked that worked really well for me. And that is about it. That is my super cheap studio that works for me for making music in my bedroom. I enjoy it quite a bit, and I use it all the time. Of course, I will upgrade as I have the capability to do so, but I'm totally happy with what I have.